Hi there, this is Chris, chap in the cap from Motolegends, here today to talk to you about washing motorcycle clothing, more particularly how to wash technical motorcycle clothing, by which I mean any jacket or pant that comes with a membrane. So as I've mentioned, we're talking about technical wear today, by which, and again I've alluded to this, I mean gear that has a waterproof membrane. If you've got a motorcycle jacket or pant and it doesn't have a waterproof membrane, you can pretty much just wash it in the machine with a normal household detergent. Now the one thing that you might want to do with a garment like that, almost every motorcycle garment, every textile garment and some leather garments have what's called a DWR on the surface. It's a coating, it's called a durable water repellent, and it's that when it first rains, causes the water to pool and run off. It doesn't give you long-term waterproofing, but it probably gives you half an hour or so before the rain starts to seep in and you start to feel very wet and cold. Now, when you wash a garment that doesn't have a membrane, you will be washing off the reproofer. So if that's the case, what you do, you simply buy a reproofer in a bottle. You can buy it from a camping shop, from a motorcycle shop. It's normally in some kind of a trigger pack. You just spray it all over and you will have replenished the reproofing. But anyway, we're talking about here today really gear with a waterproof membrane, and when you're washing a garment, a jacket or a pant with a membrane, you have to wash it with the right products, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to take a little bit of care. There are three main reasons why we're washing a motorcycle, an item of motorcycle apparel. The first is to do with the outer fabric, and I'm going to talk about all these three different areas. The first is the outer fabric. The second is the membrane. And the third is, and I'm just going to refresh what we've already mentioned, the durable water repellent. The kind of products that we clean a motorcycle jacket with come with a reproofer, so I'm going to go over that again, but that's the third reason that we wash an item of motorcycle apparel. So let me start with the outer fabric. Now, whatever your jacket's made from, let's say it's a Cordura material, you've got threads running, the warp and the weft. It will leave holes in between, little pores as it were. And what happens is, as we're riding along, particularly in the winter, let's say it's a miserable day, there's mud on the road, it's being thrown up, that enters the pores in the material and clogs them up. The nearest analogy I can come up with is, imagine that you are in a car. You're on the motorway, the kind of conditions that I've been alluding to, and then suddenly there's no more water in your reservoir. Within minutes, your windscreen wipers are going to and fro, and they're just smearing mud across the screen. Before long, you can't see a thing, it becomes dangerous. Well, that's what's happening to your motorcycle jacket all the time in the winter. There's no such thing as a windscreen wiper, it's not being cleaned. It just progressively, that road grime, that dirt, that muck, just builds up and up in the pores. And that has a couple of implications. Has one implication: if you've got a light colour jacket, it makes it dirty. So if you do have a light colour jacket, everything I'm talking about today becomes almost more important. You need to clean your jacket even more frequently, because once that mud gets settled in, you're just not going to get it out. But anyway, when you get all of that mud, road dirt and grime in the pores in the fabric, it stops the jacket from becoming breathable. Now, if you heard or watched our recent video about base layers, you will know the importance of breathability. A technical jacket has a membrane with millions of holes in it that allow the sweat to escape, stop the rain from coming in. If the membrane, let's say you didn't have a membrane, if you had a plastic bag instead of a membrane, rain wouldn't get in, but you'd have this build-up of sweat inside. You just get wet from the inside. So a membrane is vastly important in making you comfortable on the bike. And it's important because it's the medium that allows sweat to escape and pass through the outer fabric of the garment. But if your outer garment is not breathable, you may have sweat passing through the membrane, but it's still going to be stuck in between the outer layer and the body. Now, that's going to make you feel sticky and clammy, but ultimately it will also prevent the body from cooling down, because sweating is the body's natural mechanism of cooling down. Sweat comes onto the skin, it vaporizes, the energy that takes draws heat from the body through a process called evaporative cooling, and that is what keeps you cool. But If that cannot happen because there's this buildup of moisture, because it can't escape the jacket, you cannot cool down. You're just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. So it's important that the outer fabric remains breathable. Now, there's a second issue to do with the outer fabric. And it's that, let's say it's a month later, your jacket is clogged with all this mud, you go out and it rains. That mud in the pores becomes what we call hydrophilic. In other words, it attracts the water. All that dried dirt and dust just sucks the water into the garment. And that is not nice, but what it does, it increases the time frame in which your jacket can wet out. Now, wetting out is a concept that we talk a lot about here at Motolegends. It's when you've been out for 3 or 4 hours in the rain, the water gets in, it gets through the outer fabric, it's swilling around, it makes the jacket heavy. With the wind chill factor, it makes you feel very cold. If your jacket is attracting more water, you are speeding up that process of wetting out. So you can delay the wetting out by having a clean jacket. Now, if you've got a drop liner jacket with the membrane suspends independently, that's a particular issue. But it's still a bit of an issue with a laminated jacket. So even if you've got a top of the range rucker jacket where the membrane is bonded onto the inside of the outer fabric, that mud is still going to draw water in. It might not wet out. In fact, it probably won't wet out, but it will make the jacket heavier. It will mean that it's holding more water, and the more water the jacket is holding, the colder you're going to feel. So whether you've got a laminated or a drop liner jacket, you still want the outer fabric to be clean and not to be clogged up with mud. And whether it's a drop liner or a laminated membrane, the issue of making sure that the moisture can escape is equally important. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to come on and I'm going to talk about the membrane itself. Okay. So I know it's a little bit gross, but in a lot of our videos when I'm talking about comfort on the bike, I'm talking about sweating. It's a very important part of the process of making you comfortable on the bike. Now, we sweat all the time, and as I've said, today it's the body's natural mechanism for keeping us cool. But what happens is, over time, as the sweat passes through the membrane, it doesn't all pass through it, it creates a kind of salty residue. It builds up as a film, a crystallized film on the membrane. And ultimately, eventually, it reaches a stage where the membrane is not allowing moisture to pass through it as it needs to, because all of the holes are blocked with this dried, salty residue. The other thing about that salty residue, if you can imagine it, is it's again, and I've used the word already today, hydrophilic. So when you do sweat, it sucks the moisture in, and that makes the situation worse, because that is not moisture that's going to pass through the membrane, because by the time, what happens, the way a membrane works is, by the time the membrane has to do its job, that should be in the form of vapor. But if all of that salty residue is sucking the moisture in, it's creating a wet membrane, and a wet membrane doesn't breathe. It is not doing its job. So if you want your motorcycle jacket, your technical motorcycle jacket to work, or your pant to work in the way it's meant to work as it should, then you need to keep the jacket clean, because you want to get rid of that residue on the membrane. Now, the third area, and again, I've alluded to it once already in the context of non-waterproof garments, is the DWR, the durable water repellent. So over time, as you're riding around, that will wash off. It has a life of maybe a couple of months, but it washes off and it needs to be replenished. And the products that I'm going to be talking about today, proper technical wash systems for your motorcycle gear, will have a built-in reproofer. And that's the best way to reproof your jacket, much better in our view than a trigger system, because it's going to work best when your jacket is clean. When you pulled it out, it's clean. Then the DWR is going to adhere much better to the surface. So the DWR, that's the third reason, on top of the outer fabric and the membrane, the DWR is the third reason why we need to always keep our motorcycle jacket or pants as clean as we possibly can. So when you're washing technical wear, which is what we're discussing today, as you know, a garment with a membrane, the most important thing is that you must not use a household detergent. Now, It's a household detergent. This is a favourite of Sarah's, my wife and partner in the business. She swears by it. In fact, often when I go home at lunchtime, there's a bottle of this or a pack of this in the windowsill. I don't really know why, but the main lesson is do not use a detergent when washing your technical motorcycle wear. A bio is even worse, but even a non-bio can cause irreparable damage to your motorcycle wear. And it does that by clogging up the membrane. Now, nobody really knows what's in detergents, lots of horrid stuff, but it clings to the membrane. It will make the membrane, as we've been discussing with the sweat and so on, it can make it hydrophilic, sucks the water in, it can stop its breathability. And once you have washed a garment in detergent and blocked the membrane, it is almost impossible to undo it. So it really is a no-no. The other thing that detergents do, it attacks the taping, the glue in the taping that runs through a motorcycle jacket. Now, any motorcycle jacket is comprised of a number of panels. Where those panels butt up to one another, they are sewn together. When you sew those together, you create holes. Those are holes through which the water can flow. That's not good in a motorcycle jacket. So what happens if you were to look on the inside of any waterproof, technical waterproof motorcycle jacket, you'll find this kind of silvery waterproof tape. That's important. But if you use a detergent, what we've seen a lot is that the detergents attack the glue that holds that tape in place, it comes away, and then suddenly the jacket starts to leak. So if you use a detergent to clean your motorcycle wear, you can simply ruin your suit overnight. It doesn't matter whether you spent 500, 1,000, 1,500 pounds, 2 grand, you can ruin a suit by washing it in a detergent. And if you take it back to your motorcycle store and say, my suit's leaking, it's not going to be that easy to get away with it, because there's a thing called the sniff test that is known by motorcycle shops, and certainly if your gear gets sent back to the laboratory for testing, they will sniff the garment. Now, the professional cleaners that you should be using for cleaning motorcycle wear have no fragrances in. All household washing products do. So if when you hold up a trouser or a jacket, you can smell any kind of fragrance, the dealer is going to know that you wash it in a detergent, and then it's kind of game over. You're not going to be able to claim for it being unwaterproof all of a sudden. So the question is, if you can't use detergents, what can you use? Now, the best known product on the market is from a company called Knickers. It's been around forever. You can find it in any camping shop. It's a 2-part solution. You've got Tech Wash, which is a non-detergent soap. So what you would do in your wash cycle, you wash it with this product, wait until the cycle is finished. Then when that is finished, you pour some of this in the compartment and you reproof it. Now, it works perfectly well. It's been around for a long while. We actually have fairly recently come across a product that we think is better than Knickers in some ways. And this is the product. It's called Storm, recommended by Rucker, and it has a number of advantages that we think gives it an advantage. I've said advantage twice there, but you know what I mean. It contains no soap. So even though Knickers has no detergent, it still has soap. If in your washing machine, if the rinsing cycle is not as good as it should be, you can still be left with soapy residues on the membrane. And those soapy residues, when they dry, hydrophilic, suck the water in, stop the membrane being breathable. So that's not the perfect scenario. The other problem at times with Knickers is, depending on where you are in the country, you have to use more Knickers in a hard water area than a soft water area. The third issue with Knickers is that you have the 2 cycles. You do one first and then you do the reproofing. Storm works a little bit differently. It's got no soap in it, so it's a formula that I'm nowhere near clever enough to understand, but it does work, but it doesn't contain any soap, so it rinses through much better on the rinse cycle. The bottles, each of these is 225 ml. You get 3 washes and 3 reproofs out of every bottle. So you buy this, and whether you're in a hard water area or a soft water area, you know that you're going to get 3 washes with this. But thirdly, and for many people more importantly, you can use both of these at the same time. So when you do your wash, you put the washer in the wash drawer, you put the reproofer in the softener drawer, and you do it all in one go. All I can say is, It's a great product, it's £20, and given the benefits that it brings in terms of breathability and the longevity of your motorcycle gear, I think that money's well spent. Anyway, let's go on now. I'm going to talk about how to actually go through the process of washing your motorcycle gear properly. So now I'm going to talk about how we actually go about the washing and reproofing. Now, Graham, our cameraman today, has asked me to point out one thing, and I'm glad he has done that. We've been talking today about technical motorcycle wear, and I have defined technical motorcycle wear as a garment with a membrane. But there is an exception, and it is waxed cotton. You cannot wash a waxed cotton jacket in the washing machine in the way that we're going to talk about with a garment like this. You cannot really dry clean a waxed cotton garment. I have come across some people who say that they are specialists in dry cleaning, but I've seen some pretty ropey results at times. So I think if you do have a waxed cotton jacket with or without a membrane, you just have to use a wet cloth. That's part of the naturalness of waxed cotton. It develops a patina, it becomes dirty and grimy, it's part of the character. You cannot really effectively clean a waxed cotton jacket. Anyway, I'm glad I've got that out of the way. So what we do, first thing is we zip out the thermal liner. Now this is the Calyx jacket from Rocket. It actually doesn't have a thermal liner, but most motorcycle jackets will have. They'll zip out, they'll clip out. They do not need a specialist cleaner. I would just follow the instructions because they're all made in different ways. For example, the X-Down from Rucker is not one that you would, I think you have to be very careful about cleaning that. I don't know what the instructions are, but normally there will be hand wash instructions, or it will tell you to do it on a 30-degree cycle or 40-degree cycle, but you should remove that from the jacket and handle that separately. One of the most important things, and I've had a terrible experience with this on more than one occasion, make sure you empty everything from the pockets. I've had a couple of instances where I've left tissues in the pockets. It makes a heck of a mess. It can take months, if not years, to get rid of all of that. I've had black jackets that have ended up looking grey. It's a real pain. So just take a few minutes to go through all the pockets inside and out to make sure that there's nothing lying in there. Then what you want to do is take the armour out. Now, varies from jacket to jacket, trouser to trouser. Some it's very easy and obvious. You look at where the armour is, there's a piece of Velcro, you pull it out. Some it's a bit hidden. Sometimes you have to go in a zip at the hemline. Sometimes it's inside the armour pocket. But whatever jacket or trouser you've got, I can assure you there will be a way of removing the armour. It is not possible, it is not feasible that any manufacturer would create a garment where the armour is stuck in. So there will always be a way of taking it out. With this jacket, it's pretty easy. But in true Blue Peter fashion, this is one that I prepared earlier. I've taken the other armour out. The other thing that you're going to be doing is turning it inside out. So then it's ready for the wash. One thing I would say is before you get to the washing itself, run the machine on a very hot cycle, a 90-degree or 95-degree cycle. Put some old rags in there, and the reason that you're doing that is to get rid of the detergent that will be behind the drum that's going to be in the pipes. There's no point in going through this process with a fantastic, dedicated, non-detergent based cleaner to then find that you've got detergent in the drum. You're just undoing the work. So run it through on a cycle, get rid of all the detergent in the machine. So for this next part of the demonstration, I need a washing machine. I brought one along, so give me a second, it's going to take a while. It's a bit of a heavy beast. Wow, there it is. So for those who don't know what one of these is, it's a washing machine. So you want to put it on a 30-degree or a 40-degree cycle, depending on the instructions. Varies, I've found, from brand to brand. I'm going to talk about using the Storm system because I think it's easier. It's the one we recommend. You've got the detergent drawer here. So the bottles of Storm are 225 ml. The caps are 25 ml. So you will put 3 capfuls of the wash in the wash drawer, and you'll put 3 capfuls of the reproofer in the softener drawer. Close her up, turn her on, wait, isn't that fantastic? Now that's going to go on for longer than we have time for today, but when the cycle is done, you remove the garment from the washer. Remember, with Storm, it doesn't have to go back in for a second reproofing. What we then do is we take it out and we let it dry. You can let it line dry, you can hang it on a hanger, you can lay it flat on a towel, but you want to leave it for as long as it takes to basically dry out. But you only want to leave it until you still want it to be damp, because there's another process we need to go through. When it's damp but not dripping wet, you want to put it back into the dryer, not the washing machine, but the dryer, for a cycle of 15 to 20 minutes. Now, that's because within the liquid, there is a reproofer that is in the fabric, but what we need to do is kind of bake that in. Heat helps seal the water repellent in. So there are 2 ways of doing it. You can put it back in the dryer for a short period, or you can use an iron. Now, personally, I'm frightened silly of using an iron on a motorcycle product. I've seen instances, rubber buttons, you catch the rubber button and you ruin the rubber button, or if you've got reflective logos on there, you run the ironer over it, that takes the glue off, they start to curl, they start to come off. So my personal view is you are much safer putting the gear, the jacket and the trousers into the dryer for 15 or 20 minutes. Don't, for God's sake, put the gear in the dryer as soon as you take it out of the washer, because you'll ruin it, it'll end up half the size. But a 15 to 20 minute cycle at the end will be just about perfect. So that's basically how to wash your motorcycle gear. There's always one question remaining, and I'm going to come back and address that now. How often, how frequently should I be cleaning my gear given the kind of mileage I do? So let's go on and look at that. So the question that everybody wants answering, the thing that people always ask, is how often do I need to wash my motorcycle gear? And it's like a piece of string. It really depends on so many factors. Now, if you're someone who commutes, here in Guildford we have a lot of people who commute into the city, into London. They are spending a long time at low speeds with the emissions from vehicles around them. If you've got that kind of commute in heavy traffic, you need to be cleaning your gear more often. If you're someone who rides all weathers and you're out in the roads that I was describing earlier on, when you've got that mud being thrown up from the roads and the mud is clinging into the pores in your jacket, you need to clean your jacket more often. If you're only a summer rider, obviously then less often. The other thing that you might want to bear in mind is that if you're wearing a light coloured outfit, particularly a light coloured jacket, because there aren't that many light coloured trousers, but if you're wearing a light coloured jacket, you might want to wash your gear more often. We have a number of clients who've got maybe adventure suits, patches of black, maybe a cream or a very light grey. Once that gets encrusted with dirt and gets too dark, you will never clean that. So if you do have a lighter coloured jacket, and we like a lighter coloured jacket for a number of reasons, then you just need to be more mindful. You need to clean it more often, otherwise you will just not bring it back. So in essence, what we say is that if you're doing something like 12,000 miles a year, and for us that's someone who's got a daily commute, not a particularly long commute, but for 12,000 miles a year, you should be washing your gear maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So that's every 4 to 6 months, or every 4,000 or 6,000 miles, between 4,000 and 6,000 miles. If you're a particularly heavy commuter, and again, we have people here every day up to the city who are doing 20,000 miles a year, which is huge mileage. We think those guys should, and many of them do, wash their gear every 3 months, because if you want to be comfortable in all conditions, if you don't want to get overly hot, if you want to stay warm, and if you want the suit to remain breathable and waterproof, you have to keep on top of your gear. If you do not wash your gear, and nobody says that you have to wash your gear, we have lots of clients here who will go 4, 5, 6 years without even looking at a washing machine. So you are not obliged to wash your gear, but the problem is that you do not notice the gradual deterioration, because you put it on in year 3 and it feels no difference to the way it felt 3 months ago or 6 months ago, because it's a gradual decline. So you will not notice the problem. But it will be becoming less and less effective. And the point at which the suit eventually fails and lets you down, that it becomes so smelly you don't want to put it on, it doesn't breathe anymore, or it starts to leak, you are bringing forward that point. So if you're happy with that, if you would rather buy a new suit and not be bothered with the faff of washing, that's fine by us. But if you like to look after your gear, if you want the best out of it for as long as you possibly can, then you need to wash your gear something along the schedule that we've been discussing here today. So if you'd like to see all of our motorcycle cleaning products, then visit the website motolegends.com. But if you'd like to learn more about the Storm products, then if you click on one of the links on the screen, sometimes they're up there, sometimes they're down there, that will take you directly to the relevant page on the website. You can check out the details there, see if we've got it in stock, and obviously you can order them there and then. Now, when you buy from us, we try to make the process as simple, straightforward and risk-free as we possibly can. There's no delivery charge on any protective wear you buy from us. Returns are totally free, and we give you a 12-month window in which to decide whether you do want to return something to us. We have the best price guarantee in the business. Now, John Lewis is rightly famed for its never-knowingly undersold price promise. We go one stage better. If you can find anyone selling anything that we sell at a price that is lower than ours, we will beat that competitor's price by a full 10%. If the retailer is in the EU and not in the UK, we will match their landed price. Now, there are a few terms and conditions, nothing particularly onerous, but if you are going to price beat us, I suggest you visit the website and check out what those terms and conditions are. Now, if in the future you'd like to receive bulletins from us about new products, then if you go to the top of any page on the website, there's a piece of script there that says newsletter sign up. Click on that, within seconds you'll be in business. In future you'll receive our bulletins. If, however, you prefer to get your information from us videographically, that is to say in this form, then we would be delighted if you wanted to become a subscriber to our YouTube channel, and you can do that by clicking on the button below. Now, this is 2020, and before the end of the year we're going to be giving away a motorbike to a YouTube subscriber. We're calling the bike a Steve McQueen tribute bike. It's based on a Mutt 125cc machine. It's a lovely little cutie. You can read more about it on the front page of our website or on the home page of our YouTube channel. Finally, I'd like to make a play for our fabulous little shop here at Motolegends. We're based about a mile from the centre of Guildford, a mile from the railway station. As I've suggested, the shop is not huge. It's got a fairly small footprint, but it's attached to our warehouse where we have more than £2 million worth of merchandise arranged over 3 floors. Technically, that makes us the second largest motorcycle apparel shop in the country. But we think that we are far more than just the quantity of merchandise we have in the building. We're all about service, we're all about personal fitting. If you want to check us out, visit Trustpilot. We have the highest 5-star ranking in the business. When you come and see us, we'll sit down, we'll have a chat with you, we'll serve you only the finest Italian illy coffee or proper Yorkshire tea in a proper teapot. Anyway, this has been Chris. I hope to talk to you again soon.